The important thing is that the Manipur Bharatiya Janata Party on Thursday had condemned the opposition political parties for allegedly using the United Kuki Liberation Front's allegations of having an affiliation with BJP to spread further unease in the already tense situation. A release issued by BJP Manipur Pradesh Vice President Nimbus Singh stated that the allegation raised by UKLF that it held Bharatiya Janata Party in the Manipur State Assembly Lok Sabha election is false and baseless. It is quite unfortunate. He says that two prominent BJP leaders were being dragged in by the UKLF false allegation. So BJP, Brijesh has denied it. And then BJP has stated that we urge that the protection of the territorial integrity of the state be maintained. So, and on the other hand, CBI has denied entry to probe arms loot from Manipur Police Training College Armory. These are related developments which I am putting on paper. Congress has questioned Prime Minister Modi's absence. CPM says removing CM should be the first step. Sonia Gandhi has urged the women of Manipur to lead in restoring peace. Unprecedented firing continues. ID blast in Kwatka has taken place, 2 dead. Now, issue is multiple MLAs are speaking in multiple voice. Independent MLA Nishikant Samab on Thursday clarified that the special measure in the memorandum submitted to the PM has been misinterpreted as demand for the president rules in the state in which they are against. I'm putting all these things in perspective before I introduced my guests. And suspension of network in Manipur is contrary to SC ruling, says Internet Freedom Foundation. No separate administration campaign rejected by all party, that is one. Visit to Delhi fruitful as Amit Shah has called for all-party meeting. RK Emu. And 2 from Manipur bag National Florence Nightingale Award. Something good is also happening. I have to say this. Dima Khamam Hangshing and Iram Chandrabala Devi from Manipur were conferred the National Florence Nightingale Award for Nurses 2022-23 respectively. This is one part of the news which I am going to show.
Absolutely.
Which I am going to show. But before that, I will run bite of Jairam Ramesh and Basanta Kumar Singh. Please listen to them first.
It's been 51 days and the agony, the distress, the pain of the anguish of Manipur continues. Prime Minister is of course now today in the US, but he's not said a word on Manipur. He's kept quiet, he's kept mum, and not only that, he's refused to meet MLAs from Manipur, political parties from Manipur, his own party colleagues from Manipur. Now, meanwhile, the Home Minister has called an all-party meeting on the 24th of this month. What use of having an all-party meeting when the Prime Minister is not there? What use to have an all-party meeting here in Delhi when there is need for peace, harmony and reconciliation in Manipur, in Imphal? I think this is a gross dereliction and abdication of duty on the part of the Prime Minister. It's beyond comprehension. In fact, it's bizarre. Why the Prime Minister has chosen to remain silent when a state of India is burning, hundreds of people have been killed, tens of thousands of people have been displaced, and the Home Minister, of course, went to Manipur after a gap of almost 25 days. They were busy electioneering in Karnataka, but his visit has had no impact whatsoever. So we are seeing today was a bitter division between communities in Manipur, and essential commodities are not available easily. As I said, armed groups, still continue to operate with impunity. So, all in all, it's a colossal failure of governance, the so-called double-engine sarkar. It's a failure on the part of the union government to respond, and it's the failure of the state government run by the BJP to control the situation and allowing such a situation to develop in the first place. It really is it's a most depressing moment. The anguish of the people of Manipur is the anguish of the people of India. We have to demonstrate that. And the Prime Minister, who better a person than the Prime Minister himself to show that he cares? So We still hope that, he's now in the US, then he goes to Egypt. Somewhere he decides to break his silence. And of course, on crucial national issues, the Prime Minister, of course, keeps quiet. He gives gyan on every issue under the sun. But when it comes to real issues, like what's happening in Manipur, he chooses to remain silent. So this is indeed the most shocking part of the last 51 days. It's this continued silence of the Prime Minister, masterly inaction, eloquent silence.
The pain and anguish of the people of Manipur is being felt by the Bharatiya Janata Party and the state government, which is also, being under this Bharatiya Janata Party is a party in power, and such measures are being taken along with the Home Ministry so that peace and tranquility returns to Manipur as in the past, and our beloved state can be again once again be peaceful and people can live in harmony once again. भारत के देशवासियों सबको अभी मालूम है कि मणिपुर में ये सब माहौल जो चल रहा है, इसका जो करंट सिचुएशन है, इसमें जरूरी है कि जल्द से जल्द हमारा इस स्टेट का, मणिपुर का ये पीस एंड ट्रैंक्विलिटी आ जाए जल्द से जल्द. इसीलिए हमारा ऑनरेबल प्राइम मिनिस्टर अभी आउट ऑफ द कंट्री है, लेकिन सिचुएशन ऐसे डिमांड करते हैं कि जल्द से जल्द हमारा इसमें नेशनल लेवल पे ऑल पार्टी मीटिंग एक ऑनरेबल होम मिनिस्टर श्री अमित शाह जी ने 24 जून को बुलाया गया है. इसमें अगर सबका जो मेजर्स क्या लेना है, सबका कंसेंसस लेके मणिपुर में पीस लाने के लिए इसीलिए 24 को बुलाया गया है. और इंटरनल सिक्योरिटी मैटर जो है हमारा होम मिनिस्ट्री के अंदर है, और होम मिनिस्ट्री का दायित्व है कि हमारा जो इंटरनल सिक्योरिटी स्टेट्स का हो, कंट्री का हो, वो होम मिनिस्टर इसको देख लें और संभालें. और इसीलिए ये मीटिंग बुलाया गया है अंडर द चेयरमैनशिप ऑफ द ऑनरेबल होम मिनिस्टर. सेकेंडली, इम्फाल में मिस्टर जयराम रमेश जी को शायद अवेयर नहीं होगा कि इम्फाल में ऑल पार्टी मीटिंग अराउंड मिडल ऑफ मई में ये जो प्रॉब्लम शुरू हुआ है, 3 मई को शुरू हुआ था, अराउंड 10th 11th ऑफ मई को हमारा इम्फाल में भी एक ऑल पार्टी मीटिंग अंडर द चेयरमैनशिप ऑफ द ऑनरेबल चीफ मिनिस्टर हुआ था. और उसमें ऑनरेबल एक्स चीफ मिनिस्टर कांग्रेस श्री ओ इबोबी सिंह अलॉन्ग विद एमएलएस प्रेजेंट थे, मौजूद थे, और सारा पॉइंट्स डिस्कस करके जब ऑनरेबल होम मिनिस्टर श्री अमित शाह जी भी आए थे तो एंड मई में उसी टाइम भी मेजर पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज का मीटिंग एक और बुलाया गया था. तो स्टेट में ये सब मीटिंग हो चुका है. तो नेशनल लेवल में नेशनल पार्टीज के साथ कंसेंसस लेके हमारा मणिपुर जो मणिपुर में चल रहे इश्यूज को रिजॉल्व करके पीस और ट्रैंक्विलिटी फिर से आ जाए, इसीलिए दिल्ली में ये मीटिंग बुलाया गया है. और ये भारतीय जनता पार्टी का बिल्कुल हमारा सोच है और बिल्कुल हमारा भरोसा है कि जो स्टेट गवर्नमेंट और सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट मिलके अभी मणिपुर में फिर से पीस और हार्मनी आ जाए, ये हमारा उम्मीद है. और हम सबसे प्रार्थना करते हैं कि सब हमारा हेल्प करें, इसमें पॉलिटिकल कमेंट्स या एडवांटेज लेने का नहीं करें और हेल्प करें मणिपुर में पीस लाने के लिए.
Okay. A number of political parties have spoken. I'll run those bites later, but I'm joined by Beena Lakshmi Nepram, founder director Manipur Women Gun Survivor. A very warm welcome to you, madam. I'm also be joined by Professor Bhagat Oinam, concurrent faculty, Special Center for Study for Northeast. Professor, a very warm welcome to you. And I'm also joined by Dr. Thongalal Haukip, Assistant Professor, Center for the Study of Law and Governance, JNU. Mr. Haukip, a very warm welcome to you as well. And my political editor, Brijesh Pandey, is with me in the studio. So Brijesh, just set the conversation for us. Tomorrow is a very important meeting. Well, absolutely. Tomorrow is a very important meeting because unlike the meeting which once happened in Manipur, this meeting assumes very important is of important significance, and also the fact that after the opposition party led by Congress, which has been demanding a meeting with the Prime Minister as well as asking for an all-party meet so that an acceptable solution can be arrived as far as dousing fire in the state of Manipur is concerned. It is extremely important. It will be very interesting to see how it goes ahead, because yesterday we heard the Congress president of Manipur saying that that they don't want anything to do with, and they are not going to demand accept any demand for separate administration, and that has also led to a war of words amongst many within the Congress, saying that he is not the one who can make that statement. So it will be extremely interesting to see what the conversation is, what are the demands which are put forth before the Home Minister, and what kind of acceptable formula that emerges out of that meeting is going to be very, very crucial, because the important visit of Home Minister Amit Shah happened. Home Minister Amit Shah appealed for peace. There is no peace. There's sporadic violence, but a continuing sporadic violence, and the committee which was formed, it was a non-starter. It was an embarrassing non-starter for the central government. So that is the reason why all hopes are right now pinned at a meeting which is going to happen tomorrow.
Beena Lakshmiji, your opening comments on tomorrow's meeting, and then in that context, the facet of this violence which we have witnessed, women have come out. You find women
Yes.
in
First
public
of all,
spaces.
I don't
Yes, madam.
know how much change or new thing will the all-party political meeting will, because people of Manipur have lost trust in the political leadership, both at the state and central level, which has led to such a disaster of the most tumultuous magnitude that the history of Manipur has ever seen. Two communities who have never fought with each other, made to literally kill each other because of their politics. So for us, I have, as a woman from the region, I also have no hope in this particular so-called political party leadership, because next year is general elections, and the political party has never kept the interests of the people in heart. They've always elected those who can give them power, even if it's unethical. So men with guns and drugs running the state, and criminals who are running this country. So having said that, I still want to believe that as everyone who's trying to, calling and crying out for peace, for the women of Manipur and the northeast of India, we again appeal that genuine effort should be made. Genuine. 2024 is elections. So we know that they will again play the political games with our lives in both hills and the valley. And that's why the people of both hills and valley must wake up to be able to get good leaders who can determine our efforts, our work, and what the people needs. Having said that, yes, the women, we will be acutely watching what is happening. And just like we are doing continuously since 3rd of May, continue to engage in dialogue, genuine peace talks. So more than the old party political meeting, they should have again reconstituted a genuine peace committee in which both communities. So that's why we asked not just a committee, but for a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Peace talks should start with all the warring groups. The arms must be let down. Only then can we be able to find some peace and douse the fire. I doubt that the all political party meeting will come to any proper conclusion of bringing peace in the region while there's an all-out war, civil war going on, which is a tragedy, real tragedy.
Madam, do you feel that the differences which these political parties have at national level, hard political differences, can have an overbearing impact on the meeting tomorrow? If you look at the statements of Congress leaders, other political parties and the BJP leaders, it's as if they have drawn a battle line even before the meeting starts or the conversation starts.
That's their mandate. They have always drawn battle lines. That is why Manipur is fractured now, because of their battle lines. That's why I said, do not do the politics, necropolitics with us. The loss of 170 lives. the burning and the looting and the firing, they are playing with our lives. That's why we, the people of Manipur, Hills and Valley, must wake up to this reality that their necropolitics must stop, in which our lives have been put on the line. Well, the leaders who engineered this conflict, they're never killed. But those who are at the border peripheral villages continues to be bombarded, attacked, killed. So for us, again, it's going to take time for the civil society, for the community to reconstitute our faith and trust back in political leadership overall.
Okay, you stay with me, madam. I'm also joined by Professor Oinam and Dr. Haukip. Professor Oinam, yesterday one thing has become very clear, that if there is no consensus on multiple political issues on how to bring peace, but there is one converging line which is there on the draft. And that converging line is all the political parties, most of them have said no to separate administration.
Most of?
They have said no to separate administration. BJP, Congress, and most of the political parties.
Yeah. Except for the 10 MLAs, all other MLAs are against the political, this administrative separate administration. That is for clear. Even these 10 MLAs, I'm not sure. Some of them are still in touch with the administration through other mediums, I believe, because that is what is meant to be learned. When Chief Minister gave an interview with Northeast Live based in Guwahati, that is, there are dialogues being going on through some other channels to make them see that maybe a separate administration is not a very viable option. So the main point that they must all come in is how to bring peace at this point. Peace in the sense of stopping of the violence. That has to be the first priority. As you know, yesterday also there has been gunfights. There are casualties at both ends. Not only both ends, three-cornered. Now, what is happening is there is the Kuki militants. There is also this Meitei village, what they call defense, but these are all mixed up group. And then you have the security forces. So Assam Rifles, CRPF and Rapid Action Forces on the other side. So there are casualties happening on all the three parts. So this has to come to an end. So far as President's rule is concerned, there is a mixed bag. Again here, what I learned is most of the MLAs are not in favor of President's rule. Because once you bring in President's rule, then the voices of the legislative assembly members would be mute. So that is something they may not like to happen, except for the Kuki MLAs. But most of the, I think the Congress MLAs as well as some of the BJP, disgruntled BJP MLAs, they want the change of leadership, somebody else to become Chief Minister. And perhaps that could be one of the bargaining chips, looks like, with the Kuki MLAs, as I can see. Yeah.
As you can see. Mr. Purkayast also joins me. Mr. Purkayast, one thing has happened, that despite consensus on the fact that separate administration is a no-go, but identities have hardened. They are hardened to an extent that it will be visible tomorrow. And mark my word, we'll be doing a special show on it. We'll do a 4-hour show on this before the meeting starts until it ends. And I can tell you that the conversation, despite the fact that there are two different political parties, will take place on the line of identity within the meeting.
See, yes, you are right that balkanization of Manipur has been almost completed. There are, the Meiteis, in Meitei areas, you will hardly find any cookies, and in Kuki areas, you will hardly find any Meiteis. But having said so, and this in the all-party meeting, I don't think, we will see that kind of um, division, because most of the parties budding, as Professor Oinam has said, budding 10 MLAs from the Kuki areas, they are on the same page on various issues like upholding the territorial integrity of Manipur. um, but this thing, this all party meeting, what are we looking at the all party meeting? To expect too much on this all party meeting is also will be no, will be a kind of stress, because I don't think this. It's now for the political parties, particularly the Congress and other the opposition parties, has much stake in this. The BJP should first let their Meiteis and Kuki MLAs sit together and resolve the issues among themselves. That is more important than bringing in all other political parties. These are good for optics, but ultimately I don't think there will be much outcome from this all party meeting.
Now, Dr. Hauke, your opening comments on tomorrow's all-party meeting and the sort of political consensus there is against separate administration, then I take the conversation to a different level.
Brijesh, I have this problem about many of the Manipuri politicians, that there is quite unwillingness to engage with the problem. When there is a demand that there should be separate administration, then this unwillingness to engage with it itself is the problem. I have put out in this show that there are different types of, maybe there may be different forms of separate administration. I have put out 4 of them. First is 6th schedule, the normal 6th schedule, which are functioning in Mizoram. And secondly, you have the territorial councils on the lines of Bodoland territorial councils, and you have the union territory as well as the separate state demand. So you have these 4 kinds of separate administration that can be put out. And I think the unwillingness of many politicians in Manipur to engage with this demand itself is the problem. And they should, right now, at this juncture, they should be willing to engage with this demand and negotiate with it. That is the way forward. And what are they going to discuss tomorrow? That is my problem. After so many houses are razed to the ground, many properties are burned down and looted, and then thousands of arms have been stolen or given away, and they are being used to fight against another community. Why are we going to discuss PR right now? Of course, there is a possibility that PR could serve the state also. For instance, we can put the state assembly under suspended animation, and the center could rule for 2-3 months, and then when there is peace and order restored in the state, then the assembly could be revived, and then there could be a change of, for instance, head of government. So there are many options that can be put forward, but why do you take so much time, almost 2 months, to discuss in Delhi and to take into the opinions of the MLS? So that is my question. After so many people have been displaced, they are in relief camps, many people have suffered, houses are razed to the ground in Imphal, in More, in Churachandpur, in Kampopi districts. After all this suffering, why do you take so much time to discuss all these problems? So let
Dr.
me,
Hauke,
as
you
a
are basically
political
Dr.
person,
Hauke. Dr. Hauke, basically
yes.
you're saying that the government has taken wasted too much time.
Of course, too much time. They could have done this in the second week itself, whether there should be a PR and the assembly is imposed or placed under suspended animation. they should have discussed in the second week itself. And regarding the change of head of government also, they could have, discussed on the first week of this month itself. These are not being, taken proactively or taken on time. And after so much of destruction and the continuing sporadic violence on the foothills of Imphal Valley and Kampupi districts, these are continuing. And what have the administration taken on the ground right now? What about the arms, thousands of arms and ammunition looted or given away to civilians or supposed to be, radical groups? These are never discussed in the, that could affect the governance or the law and order situation. These are not discussed at all. And my most disappointment was this week when the Prime Minister of India discussed or talk about what is called Man Ki Baat. There was silence. It was the first time that I listened to Man Ki Baat, the 102nd version of this Man Ki Baat, and there was not even a single mention of violence in Manipur. That disappoints me a lot. Why should you only paint good things about India when Manipur is burning to the ground? You have to mention and to appeal in this Man Ki Baat. Of course, the people of Manipur has refused to listen because they already know that the Prime Minister will not utter a word about Manipur. So these are the problems we have with the central government. And I have already said many times that, we never discuss about tribal autonomy because when the constitution was framed, the framers of the Indian constitution put forward that there should be a kind of tribal autonomy in Assam as well as in other parts of the Northeast. And in all these states, either in Mizoram or in Tripura or in Meghalaya or in Assam, this tribal autonomy has been in place. And for the last 45 years, the hill people have been demanding this form of governance in Manipur, and this has not been properly discussed. Until now, these demands have grown up, and people are unwilling to come under the state administration now. This is the eventual, outcome of this unwillingness to engage with the autonomy demands of the tribals. So we have to look into these demands. Even though it's 75 years of independence, people are still, wanting for proper roads in the hills of Manipur, proper water facilities, hospitals or clinics in district headquarters or in subdivision headquarters. What about schools and others facilities that are very much needed? For instance, in subdivision headquarters like Hinglip or in other places in the remote areas. So these are the problems that many of the people in the hill areas are facing, and we have not addressed. And then all these, things can come. We have the problem of shifting cultivation. We have the problems of wild animal hunting. All these things can be controlled or addressed through these tribal councils. The Manipur state government can point out to the councils that there is a gross violation of certain acts. So address these problems. So give some autonomy to the kind of autonomy to given to other parts of the Northeast to these Manipur tribals. Then I think some kind of progress and some kind of trust can build. And right now we are unwilling to engage with this kind of demands that are come up. And I'm very upset that the MLS and the political parties are, so much unwilling to engage with this separate administration demand. As I've told you, there can be 4 kinds of separate administration. It can be, sixth schedule, or it can be territorial council within the state also. That we never, if we are unwilling to engage it, how can we solve it?
Okay, Dr. Hakip, I'll Brijesh this side. I'll come to you. Beena Lakshmi Nepram ji, hi, Brijesh Pandey this side. I wanted to ask you a question, because after all the opposition parties have been, talking about how the Prime Minister should meet, how the Home Minister should meet, tomorrow is a all-party meet. Do you think with the kind of hardened positions from both sides, be it a Kuki or a Maiti, and most of the sides already make up their mind, you think that this is going just to be just a ceremonial meeting with nothing substantial emerging out of it? Or you see that some new path or new ground will be broken because all the national political parties will be present there? trying to thrash out some sort of formula which can at least initiate or start the initiation of peace process back in Manipur, ma'am?
Yes, I have also said this before. Let us not forget that elections is next year. So the political parties will do their Tandav dance. They are doing this and over the dead bodies of so many of our people. So we have no faith that this all-party meeting will come to any proper conclusion to bring peace about in Manipur. Rather, what is required to be done in Manipur is a critical look at what are the different demands. The demands for the people to self-determine their politics, to self-determine their future, and to self-determine our peace has to be done when the Kukis and the Meiteis, and not just the Kukis and the Meiteis, but Manipur has over 30 plus communities sitting down together and seeing what are the problems which has plagued. And of course, the colonial administration, which started in the British rule, followed by the government of India, has separated hills and valley, brothers and sisters, communities against each other, which has been weaponized. One of your anchors has said that the hardened position, it is not about hardened position. It's just that those who want to control the politics and the power in the state have weaponized our identities. I repeat, weaponize our identities. That today there is so much of hate mongering amongst two communities who have never done that before. I have been inundated by hate mails in a way that it has pained my heart. And it's not that I am sad that I'm receiving these hate mails. It's because we have maintained a stand in which we have called for peace. So those who are trying to engineer divide, they must stop this and say, what is the solution? Anything can be done with a proper peace talk and negotiation. The concern that the hill people of Manipur have been having must be addressed. We need good leaders. I always say that the government of a state or a center are like our second set of parents. They should be knowing what the children in the state are asking and crying for. So there is a complete denial from everyone, which includes the Prime Minister, who the Man Ki Baat should be Maut Ki Baat. His Man Ki Baat has become Maut Ki Baat, the talk of death right now. So I think there is this, so that's why we need a real sort of new social contract in our community, which will ensure trust building and love back in our lives. The fighting has to stop, as I said. I'm just telling you, and I think my brothers here will tell you, there's an ongoing civil war going on. Weapons of the most sophisticated kinds have been brought forward to kill each other. Not only that, I have seen the bodies, the atrocities which are committed, the burning in ambulances. How can we as a community, as a nation, as a civilization, stand witness to the brutality of the killings which have gone on in Manipur? Have we gone dumb? Have we gone completely, sort of numb to what is happening in Manipur? And we do not trust the political parties. In fact, the communities of Manipur, both hills and valleys, should reject all political parties which has brought about this. The criminalization of our democracy, the democracy at gunpoint done in Manipur is what has resulted in the kind of pain that we are facing right now. So I think we need a new social contract in which people determine what is needed to be done for peace. I have traveled to many districts in Manipur, including Churachandpur, including Chandel, Senapati. My father was posted in Senapati for a long time. So I grew up also in the hills. So what I'm trying to say is, yes, no roads, no medical. Manipur has, I think, if I believe, about 39% poverty rate. It's a state with a lot of poverty. And so there are infrastructure, there's no hospital. We have built even toilets in some of the hill districts. Infrastructure is lacking in many of our communities. So I think the government, if they are considerate enough, must think about ensuring that progress reaches the nook and corner of the state. Rather it is being, identities are weaponized and we are made to fight with each other. And we are really, it's not being about emotional, but it hurts. There is so much of pain since 3rd of May. and it is not done. So anything could be negotiated. We should have the courage, the moral courage. But mind you, the people of Manipur will come out. They are coming out, and we will determine our own future. And I think it's very important for the hill and valley communities, all communities, to also talk it out. So peace talks should be going parallel with any kind of talks at a political level.
Professor Oinam, I was reading an article. An article said that the popular perception that there are permanent and persistent differences in ethnic traits between communities is misleading. And the author says that the popular Manipuri dish, iromba, can serve a useful example. And iromba comes from Iru Tana Lomba, a Meitei term for a liquid that is mixed. Considered a culinary delicacy, iromba was simply boiled and mashed vegetable with fermented fish. The ingredient now used in iromba, such as potatoes and chilies, were brought to India by colonial powers. In fact, the article goes on to say our ancestors would not have recognized the dish the way it is prepared. In similar manner, cultural identities in Manipur are also subject to historical change. So there is nothing, so the ethnicities like iromba cannot be it cannot be defined in terms of permanent enmities. Why can't iromba be a good metaphor for a Manipuri identity? You make whatever you want to make of iromba. You can make it with potato. You can use chili.
And it's like good part is that at least it brought smile on the faces of a professor as well as Beena Lakshmi ji.
Because all the professors are here, so every time I prepare when I come for the show, at least I read an article or two to to at least to have a meaningful conversation. Professor Oinam.
Yeah, I miss iromba a lot. Since I joined ISKCON, I stopped eating fish, and that is some delicacy that I have, really remember and wish I could come back again. But a beautiful metaphor that you have brought in. There are so much of similarities amongst these communities. It's a matter of from what perspective you want to see. If you want to prioritize difference, if you want to prioritize segregation of people, population, and land, that is one way of looking at. But there is another way of looking at which the Indian civilization, I would put it in a larger whole, even Indian nation is too young even to track down this value. That is diversity that this country has. And you have enormous differences among this diversity. Sometimes you even fight out. Yet, there is certain kind of connections between one tradition with another. So that what you sounds more like a cliche, that unity in diversity. It is, I think, a civilizational narrative that can explain Indian's tradition, Indian civilization as a whole. And I think if you look at Manipur as well, in terms of looking the difference as a reality, but within that differences, there are so much of commonalities. And searching for that metaphor of iromba is something that, but one small corrections in this I would like to say to my fellow panelist, who is an associate editor from, I missed out the journal, the channel.
The Federal.
Yeah, Federal. It is true that there is no Meiteis at this point in time in Churachandpur, but there are still lots of Kukis in Imphal city. Please do not take this that there are no Kukis left in Imphal Valley. There are lots and lots. I can say Nambulan, old Nambulan, still there are Kukis. No houses are touched there. There is new Nambulan. Even there are still lots of Kukis, Jain communities still residing. So it is not completely true that the population has been excluded. What has happened in Churachandpur is that villages or colonies in which the Meiteis stayed has been, I heard, I mean, this is not something I have seen, but the news is that those areas where Meiteis inhabited in Churachandpur has been bulldozed and has been made like a playground. And there are lots of tussle among the civil society groups who is going to settle in this and how it is to be done. So things are not as straitjacketed as we try to see. Coming back to my colleague, Haukib has said, Thankulal has said, the 4 points within separate administration that he mentioned. Well, that should be part of a dialogue, but you cannot just give away to what the demand is from the Kuki side, because the Nagas as well as the Meiteis are against this separate administration. So if you give it, supposing if you give, the government in India gives away Churachandpur and the other Aizol and other areas, Tengnopal, Chandel to as a separate administration, I can guarantee and say it so confidently, there will be greater bloodshed. It is immediately going to come. So, one, let us not jump into giving this or giving that, but there has to be a dialogue. Now, there are reasons behind demand of this for separate administration. This does not come out of blues. Like beautifully, Haukib has brought out a lack of infrastructure, lack of schools, healthcare, and so on. So we can think about this, and we also must ask, what are the MLAs doing? Both the 60 MLAs, out of which you have 20 MLAs from the hills areas. So what were they doing when they were discussing the budget? What were they doing when they are discussing about the education? Because after all, the modern temple of governance is the state assembly. It is in the state assembly, whether you like it or not, our people's representatives sit there and they discuss it out. So has there been cases where, say, the Hill MLA says that government has stopped budgets for schooling, school infrastructure, for instance, in hill districts? I haven't come across. That is the point. The point is whatever required for the development of the hills has to be squarely discussed in the state assembly and made it known to the people. If the majority...
Professor Oinam, there's a point you have made, and I would just like to bring this point to everyone. And just to, because you have spoken very beautifully about the complexity of this issue. Manipur is governed by Article 370(1)(c) of the Indian Constitution, and the provision mandates not just setting up of Hill Area Committees, HAC, with all elected tribal MLAs represented in them, but also provides for modifications in the government's rule of business to secure their proper functioning. Absolutely. And I would say additionally, Article 371(2) uses the term shall, which imposes the mandatory obligation on the state governor to send report of the functioning of the HSE to the President of India yearly or whenever necessary. And then if I think everyone would remember that the Scheduled Tribes and Other Traditional Forest Dwellers Recognition of Forest Right Act 2006 have been enacted aimed at protecting the tribal communities and their livelihoods. Now, my question here is that when we talk about people fighting, I would like to remind what political parties did in 2015. In 2015, the Manipur tabled government 3 bills that were directed against the autonomy of the autonomous district councils. Regarding the recommendation of the Manipur HSC for tabling the bill that would grant additional power to ADC in the hill districts. These 3 bills were introduced in an emergency session: the Protection of Manipur People Bill 2015, the Manipur Land Revenue and Land Reform 7th Amendment Bill 2015, and Manipur Shop and Establishment 2nd Amendment Bill 2015, and they were hurriedly passed within 2 days. The protests emerged related to these enactments, which were curbed by the state government, resulted in the death of 9 people from tribal communities, and a protest that lasted for over 600 days. It was only after the intervention of the central government that these 3 laws were recalled. Mr. Purkayas, isn't it ironic that these politicians sow the seeds of discords themselves when the constitution and the law mandates different things? This is research, nothing else.
Yes. See, this mandate is something, and implementation is altogether a different issue. So, in Northeast particularly, you will find the implementation.
Let me be very clear in this conversation. I use this example not in context of the demands. I have used this in context of animosity it generated between the tribal areas and non-tribal areas. It's a context I have given. I am not saying that this led to that.
No, see, if there were proper implementations of what's being mandated in the Constitution, there would not have been, at least this development gap between the hills and the valleys. Of course, having said so, there are other constraints in carrying out developments in the hill areas like topography and all those things are there. But basically, many things which have been mandated in the constitutions are not properly implemented over the years. And then again, we had in earlier discussions also, highlighted how this process of othering this community and that community has been a constant, constant problem in the Northeast. In every state, you will find, this practice of othering communities. And this hypothesis of identity being overshadowed by another community. These kind of things are going on for over the years. These are not something very new development, and that's always keep the Northeast pot boiling. But right now, instead of nitpicking what went wrong, who did this, and whether there are few Meitei cookies still left in the valleys. I recently visited Manipur. There was hardly few. Even the officials, senior officials, cookie officials are taking transfer. They are going out on deputations. But leaving aside all these things, now I think we need to look forward, and all the communities, particularly these two competing communities, should, in a spirit of forgive and forget, should take a step back and try to evaluate things where things gone wrong. And the government, from the government side also, it's not in the past also Manipur has seen ethnic strifes, and it had showed resilient to fight back from that kind of strife. And only few right steps needed to be taken to, I think, to again rebuild trust, and so that the communities can live happily again. And when I say few steps, firstly, for the short-term process, like now there are 40,000 odd central forces presence in Manipur. They need to first secure the international boundary so that there is no cross-border terrorism. Then the secure the peripheries, just the the villages in the peripheries, have buffer zone, keep secure these camps of central forces. These are some of the the basic steps which needed to be done, but unfortunately the state government or the central government has even failed to do these kind of basic things.
Beena Lakshmi ji has been waiting. Before I come to you, I'll just go to Dr. Haukip. Dr. Haukip, do you think that the 2015 laws had a bearing on the contemporary animosity which erupted in an unprecedented way?
It might not have a direct bearing on, but there are some kind of a threat to this, because the kind of laws or bills that have been introduced which affected the scheduled areas. For instance, we have known how Aadhaar has been introduced in this country by making some economic provisions in the act itself or the bill itself. Likewise, the three bills that have been opposed to the NIL, in 2015 contain certain, non-necessary financial contents, and that was the purpose. The purpose was to, not go through the hill area committee, which, as per the law, there is a mandatory provision that if certain provisions affect the hill areas, it has to necessarily go through the hill sanction or approval of the Hill area committee. So in order to bypass the Hill area committee, some financial or other contents has been added, and that shielded the bill from going through the procedures which requires a sanction or approval by the Hill area committee. So this kind of politics or this kind of procedure lapse has been going on, and this could only widen the gap or the mistrust between the hill and the valley. So there has to be sincerity in any kind of legislation. There has to be a wide, party-wide or community-wide discussion on any legislation that has to be brought. And I would like to make a quick reaction to my colleague Professor Bhagadot, so that it's not only in Imphal like Olambulan or New Bulambulan that there are still cookies till today. In More also, the police has taken certain steps to protect the certain Manipuri locality. That could have been done at the beginning of the riot. Srajanpur, Imphal could have been protected, like in 2001, where many of the Naga, residential areas were protected by the police. So that we have been wanting, but what was the Home Ministry or the Chief Minister doing to protect all these properties? In a capitalist state like India, the duty of the state is to protect the life and property of the people or the citizens. That is the social contract, and it has failed. And what worries most of us is that after failing so much miserably, why is the head of state still in the position of power? That's we are talking about. So he should have voluntarily resign himself, and somebody who could put the people together could have been in place in the last 2 months now. So that is my question.
Okay, Beena Lakshmi, do you think the resignation would have worked in such a situation? Because that's the question which has been put by Dr. Hauke. Do resignations work in such situations?
See, all over the world, we have seen if a credible leader has seen a complete deterioration under their administration, that things have failed, they have to take moral and ethical responsibility and have the courage to say, I failed, and let someone else who would be. But let me come back to what I would like to hear. Like you see, in both the communities, warring communities, I'm hearing the word fear, and I've said this in many programs too. Fear mongering has been rampant. Fear that, the Meiteis, their demand of ST would take away the hills, and also the Meiteis fearing that the territorial boundary of Manipur would be sort of ruptured. So you see the fear factor. So I think it's very important for scholars, academics, policymakers, and the government themselves to know that they have to sort of douse the fear which is in both the communities. How do you do that? It's again something which there is a judicial committee formed, there are investigations going on. They must come up very clearly. So what is happening is also not lack of transparency of officials who are involved in different forms, because you know what? When any citizen dies, it is the duty of the state. It is actually when any citizen is murdered, it is between the state and the murderer. We have to remember that the way in which Manipur has deteriorated into this kind, where people are, raiding gun shops and armories and arming themselves because they feel that they have been abandoned by both sides. So that is one thing. Number two, I think we have to immediately stop name calling, stop the xenophobia, stop painting one community as XYZ, which is wrong. This is xenophobia. Xenophobia must be nipped in the bud. It is not right to paint, just like when the Northeast people were called, Chinkies, when Northeast people were attacked in Delhi, we rose up to say that do not do this. We cannot name and call any community and name them that they are all XYZ. This must stop right now. So I think, and most critically, what is important is this mediation I have a feeling that the country as a whole, 1.3 billion people, have now a complete intellectual bankruptcy to see how can we mediate between two warring communities. Have we lost our intellectual and our ethical, mind to know how can we bring peace? Rather, the conflict which is on the ground has now turned online, in which there have been rampant online attacks, name calling, morphing, distortion of history, which has poisoned our diaspora, it has even reached America, where the communities are protesting in the end. But in all of these, I hear one thing of both the communities crying out for help, asking for peace. How do we bring peace and normalcy in a place where people have been lynched, burned alive? We have a lot of things to do. And that's where I think it's really important to know that this situation in Manipur has to be handled with a lot of care, with a lot of conviction, with a lot of determination and a lot of courage on both sides. And most prominently, the majority community have to have a larger heart. Let me be very honest.
Nepramji, can I, Nepramji?
The nation building, community building cannot be done at that point. Madam, it has to be done with a lot of love.
Madam, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
My question is, in all our programs, I was the one who, would put this question that why are cookies being portrayed as poppy cultivators, or why are cookies being, being considered outsiders? I'm reversing my question today. I'm saying that yes, Meiteis are majority community, but how come majoritarianism is being attributed towards Meitei? Isn't it like the same narrative? मतलब हर कुकी अगर outsider है, तो आप Meitei को majoritarian बोल रहे हैं. तो Meiteis are also becoming victim of a false narrative कि Meitei है तो majoritarian politics करता है. ये भी तो गलत है, madam.
Yes, that's why I'm saying this conflict has been engineered by those who have access to guns, drugs, and political power. I've been saying it from the day the violence started, because we have been, like many scholars here, I'm also a product of JNU, and in JNU I had conducted, because I have lost family members in this conflict, not this current conflict, but in the past. My own parents been nearly shot. So many of us, even here, we have had so many family members who have lost our lives in this violence. There are 1,500 extrajudicial killing cases in the Indian Supreme Court. So what is happening in Manipur is not just on 3rd of May, but it's a long-standing way in which guns, and all sorts of unethical practices in our, politics have resulted in even drug lords elected to power. And as a result, public had no proper voice. Voices like ourselves were almost like nuzzled, because when we talk about peace, attack from both sides. So I think it is really important to, first of all, stop the name calling. Stop the name calling of any community. This is wrong, number one. Number two, how do we sort of heal the pain, the loss, the killings, which is now really like seared our hearts and minds. But let us also remember that Manipur has seen ethnic violence before also, and the world has also seen. So we are working hard, very, very hard now to get mediators. And I appeal to all our brothers who are in this program and those who are listening, and sisters, to put our heads and our hearts to how to heal. That's why the Truth and Reconciliation Commission is very important to address. It is the people of Manipur, of all hills and the valley, who it is our land, our collective land, and to protect our collective rights. We can do this together. We can. I truly believe in my heart of hearts that we can do this together. We are in touch with several community women leaders. From my heart, I'm not into any politics in Manipur, and neither do I want to be, knowing how dirty it is. But it is important that we will defend and protect each and every innocent lives, that no further lives are lost in both the hills and the valley. We will stand united to protect this, and we are doing all on, if we are saying, if your quest for war And our quest for peace is greater than your quest for war. So this is very important, and we have not discussed. So United Nations Office on Drug and Crime has said that the drug production in the Golden Triangle, which is now Golden Pentagon, with the introduction of drug production in many parts of northeast of India, has also doubled since the Burmese military rule. So what we have to also realize, both in the hills and valley, who have suffered from drug abuse, HIV, AIDS, we know that Manipur has 23% of HIV rates in the entire country. Can you imagine? So both people of both hills and valley have fallen prey to drug addiction and HIV AIDS. So we have to collectively work together that we do not allow drug warlords from outside, from Burma, or those who are connected within our state, that they should not put our children, our youth, to die. So the war is not just about ethnicity, it's also about how to confront the drug warlords who are trying to poison our communities and generating this violence because they have purchased political power or because of their drug money. And all communities are involved in this. So we should, both the hills and the valley, the people must wake up. This is a wake-up call to the 3.3 million people living in the beautiful state of Manipur, that this is a wake-up call to ensure that we protect the lives of our children for generations to come. 3rd of May should never happen again in the history of Manipur.
Professor Oinam, so this is the hard reality which Madam Meena Lakshmi spoke about, drugs complicating the political situation in Manipur. Something that is not being spoken about, talked enough. Professor Oinam?
Yes.
So that's the real issue. The drug is the real issue. That is complicating the political situation.
Yeah. Am I audible?
Oh yes, absolutely. You are audible. Absolutely.
Yes, that is the point that we have been talking for quite some time. Even a writ petition has been filed in the Supreme Court recently, in the month of May, against what we call narco-terrorism. And we have even submitted to the Honorable Supreme Court to begin this investigation from the huge consignment of heroin confiscated in Adani port, and then in Delhi subsequently. And then, your own channel is now showing out that since this whole crisis started, from January to June, how much of drugs has been confiscated or people arrested in Mizoram and Manipur. So this is a real big issue. And even in the initial stage, it has been found that many of the kuki militants who died of the class of shooting, many what you called drugs were found being used by these militants. So it is not only the people, but those who are into the conflict, they are also victim of this drug menace. And it is not only the people of Manipur and Mizoram, but it is going to escalate, and it is going to spread out in the entire country and beyond. So this threat is not confined to the region that is Northeast, but it is for the entire country. So we have to take this very seriously. And also the point that the money that has been used for buying of arms, ammunitions, very sophisticated arms and ammunitions, which are not even used by the police forces. State police forces do not use sniper and such sophisticated arms. So you can see the amount of money that have gone into procuring of arms. And I'm not talking of one community, but across the warring community. Now I could say very confidently that sophisticated arms has been procured in both sides, both conflicting communities, forgetting, the armed security forces. So disarming is certainly one of the major agenda that government should take up. But as you have raised this point, that narco-terrorism is extremely a serious matter, because this involves forces outside the country, both in terms of drug mafia as well as arms smugglers. So even we have to look into seriously whether any important, powerful neighboring countries are involved. Because 2 points, let me say, Kartikeyan, before I end. Was a day on which Vice President of India came to Manipur. Please note this. And violence erupted on that day. What does the message go? So whoever is instigating violence is linking into delegitimizing the symbols of India's state structure. Again on 28, it started, violence erupted in a huge way on 27th night, and its shooting went on in the entire 28th of May. And 28th of May is the day when new parliament was inaugurated. So these are not mere coincidence. I strongly believe that some invisible hands are playing with the armed groups to escalate violence, come up with very sporadic violence, targeting certain dates, which is very sacrosanct to the Indian state in the region. Yeah.
Dr. Haukip, I would like you to respond to it.
Brijesh,
Dr. Haukip, I am Kartike.
Saying tutu meme will just end up saying tutu meme just like yesterday. But the problem of drugs, narco-terrorism, I think it's a region-wide phenomenon. I have read last year around August that many of the valley-based insurgent groups were murdered by a drug, lord in Myanmar, because they can't pay the amount of money owed to the Myanmarese drug lords. So insurgent groups, militants, and many politicians have been engaged in this drug trafficking, arms, and other sales. They are beneficiaries, and the people, the youths, we ruin our generation. So why can't we take this together rather than name calling? These people are immigrants. These people are refugees. These are drug traffickers or whatever. What not. So we have been hearing this for almost a decade now. I have written an article about a decade ago regarding this phenomenon. I have already opposed to this kind of name calling long back, like the International Meitei Forum, which is disbanded now perhaps, and we have engaged with them that this kind of bull up or this kind of name calling will not work. If there is a problem, let's engage together, and this will not give Manipur a good future. And the end result is what we see now. We have been academically and as well as intellectually engaging with such type of radical groups existing in Manipur, and nobody was taking note of it. We have been fighting, and then there has been quite a bull up in the last 1 decade, to be precise, and nobody take care of it, and we see the end result today. So this is our own making, and there has been no serious and no well thought out kind of engagement on this, and we destroy our generation today. How many people, almost 1 lakh people are displaced now, and they are in the midst of their schools. They have nowhere to go now. Many people are stranded somewhere else. You may think that some people in Imphal are rich enough with their pensions or the savings to stay in Delhi. It's not the case. Many people are struggling. I have heard about some of people in Shillong who have not even been able to buy even a cheeseburger or even a lunch also. People are helping them, and so this is the kind of image that we build for the people of Manipur. So why can't we solve together some of the demands for autonomy, for instance, which has been in place for the last 45 years, and in Tripura it has been extended in 1984. Why can't we think about it? We may think that the demand for separate administration may be untenable, but why can't we just say, let's discuss? That will at least calm down the sentiments of many people in the hills also. If we are unwilling to give some kind of administration based on ethnic lines. Why can't we just extend sixth schedule on district wise? There will be a district council for Chandel, a district council for Kangpopi based on sixth schedule. That will give some sense of tribal existence for the hill people, and that would not be based on ethnic lines. We never thought about that. We never discussed about that. We are just, people in the valley are just afraid that giving sixth schedule or implementing sixth schedule will, drive a wedge between the hill and valley. No, it's not. It's a kind of governance that will make some form of, some sense of security, as well as some ways of dealing with the problems like shifting cultivation, like wildlife hunting, and municipal administration, urban governance. All these things could be brought into to this together. Today we have so much disasters like earthquake or drainage systems. It's so bad in Surzanpur, for instance. There is a report last night that there is a pile of garbage dumped in the bus stand, and one television channel called TCN highlighted yesterday that unless this garbage are eliminated timely, there could be some form of disease spreading around that. So these are the kind of problems that we face, and give some power to the councils, which are toothless for the last 45 years, and some semblance of governance in the urban areas as well as in the hills could come. And we could blame, even Imphal could blame Surzanpur District Council for non-implementation of certain schemes, why proper road has not reached Hinglip or Singa out or other Tipaimuk areas. You can blame the local or tribal councils for that. So we have to discuss and just rejecting that separate administration, no to schedule, sixth schedule would only complicate the problem. So we have to be open to such demands and discuss and come to the table and discuss. Unless the 10 MLAs from the Kuki Chin communities are brought to the negotiating table, there couldn't be any peace in Manipur.
Mr. Haukip, there's an important news that has come. I would just like to share with all of you that before the meet, a very important development has taken place. Moratorium for Manipur amid clashes. Moratorium on repayment of loans for the people of Manipur to provide relief to the affected people and business. State government invoke moratorium. Moratorium on repayment of loans for the people of Manipur to provide relief to the affected people and business. State government invokes moratorium. Manipur government declares that the whole state affected by riot and violence. Whole state has been affected by riot and violence. Ethnic violence has impacted the economic activities and livelihood. RBI offers moratorium on repayment of loans and natural calamity. So this is a big development. This is to provide relief. Now people will not have to go through that EMI cycle immediately. Now this moratorium had also come into effect during COVID time. So I think Madam Nepram, Bina Lakshmi ji, how do you see this? Step taken by the government, the moratorium?
Absolutely. Yes, the moratorium plus, as Dr. Haukip also said, we are talking on political lines where people's lives have been completely upended, people's lives have been completely destroyed in this violence. So relief and rehabilitation and reparation is the need of the hour. There are so many people who are stranded, even in New Delhi. There are people stranded in Mizoram, and there are even 300 stranded. They have gone over to Burma to escape the clashes. There are stranded in Nagaland. Again, when you don't have a home, we all know who are in this program that when our homes, we always want to go home. Now, people don't even know where to go now because those homes have been razed to the ground. So I think we have to, on a war footing, government, civil society, scholars, any like-minded people who have peace in their heart to resolve this crisis must jump in to ensure that the relief and rehabilitation is able to reach anyone who have been affected. Our own, like myself personally, have been working with many communities on the ground to ensure also that basic needs, children's food, children are not able to get education right now. How do we get them to get onto the education curriculum? Plus, what is really also important is what Dr. Hakip has also said. He said they've been asking for 10 years. And so the question I want to ask is, so has there been an intelligence failure on the part of the government with all its machinery? Governments are such powerful structures. They tape our phones, they read our emails, they know what is what. They can arrest us anytime, they can just subdue us anytime, or they can also choose to ensure that the people of Manipur is able to live in peace. So the question I want to ask back is that, is the government of India, with all its intels, with all its minds, deliberately made Manipur to come to this situation?
There are couple of bites which have also come on all party meeting. Let me just play it out for the viewers. Let's play out all those bites which have come on the all party meeting, very important meeting which will take place.
एक सरकार जो पावर में बैठी है, उनको इतने दिन लगते ये जानने के लिए कि भारत माँ का एक अंग जल रही है, वहाँ के लोग तंग आए हुए हैं, वहाँ अलग परेशानी की मुसीबतें हैं, तो वो परेशान है। वो देखते हुए दक्षिण के लोग भी हम परेशान हैं, ये देखते हुए कि हो क्या रहा है अपना देश में। क्या हम इतने कमजोर हैं, क्या हम इतने निकम्मे हैं कि हम अपना देश को हम संभाल नहीं सक रहे, और इतने दिनों बाद होश आके आज बुलाए हैं ये मीटिंग के लिए। क्या होगा मीटिंग से? अब तक आपने वहां जाके वहां समस्या हल करने का कोशिश नहीं किया है। अटर फेलियर। हम विदेश जाएंगे, जप्पी लेंगे, हम इसको बोलेंगे, इसको बोलेंगे। महिलाएं यहाँ आंदोलन करते हुए दिल्ली में बैठे हुए थे, रेसलर्स, FIR तक दाखिल नहीं करवा सके।
Unfortunately, in Manipur, since almost 60 days, the violence is continuing. This violence is indirectly instigated by the foreign elements, one side, or I can say the elements which are not interested in the unity of this country and peace of this country. And I strongly feel most of the incidents took place in the Manipur area. Basically, the original race of the Manipur, original I can say, who claims that they are Maithis, belongs to the culturally Indian society, and they claim that Rukmini belongs to our Maithei community, and those communities are being attacked by the foreign elements, I can say, instigated by the foreign insurgency, foreign funded elements. And in the recent past, the last 10 days, 15 days, most of the BJP workers are attacked. Otherwise, the RSS workers are attacked in Manipur. It indicates, directly indicates that Congress party and its foreign connects are responsible for the Manipur alliance. And I strongly feel that the Sonia Gandhi statement on the Manipur violence is a crocodile tears, what I strongly feel. So I can say that the peace will come. The government of India is taking all actions, including appointing the governor as a peace committee chairman. I hope that Manipur will become normal very shortly, and people will live together and they prosper together also.
आप सोचिए, मणिपुर में दो आदिवासी समुदायों को इन्होंने आपस में मारकाट करवा दी। बीजेपी का शासन है, डबल इंजन की सरकार है, दोनों इंजन वहां पर फेल है। एक इंजन तो भाग गया अमेरिका, देश को उसकी हालत में छोड़ के, मणिपुर को उसकी हालत में छोड़ के सैकड़ों लोगों की जान जा चुकी है, हजारों घर जलाए जा चुके हैं, राज्य की महिला मंत्री का घर जलाया जा चुका है, केंद्र के मंत्री का घर जलाया जा चुका है, और प्रधानमंत्री जी सैर पे निकल गए अमेरिका के। प्रधानमंत्री जी कह रहे हैं तुम जल रहे हो, हम चल रहे हैं, निकल लिए वो। तो आप देखिए ना, संवेदनहीनता की पराकाष्ठा है, और ये सब भारतीय जनता पार्टी के द्वारा प्रायोजित किया जाता है। हिंदू मुसलमान को लड़ाने के बाद हिंदू को लड़ा रहे हैं पूरे देश में, मोहल्ले मोहल्ले में झगड़ा कराएंगे, घर घर में झगड़ा कराएंगे। इनका मकसद ही झगड़ा कराना है। क्यों? क्योंकि कोई काम नहीं करना इस देश की तरक्की के लिए इनको, और सारे मुद्दों से अगर आपका ध्यान हटाना है तो उसका सबसे अच्छा तरीका होता है झगड़ा कराइए।
मणिपुर 2 महीने से जल रहा है, आंकड़ा कुछ भी कहे 400 से भी ज्यादा निरपराध लोग मारे गए हैं, आज भी आग लग रही है और सरकार चुपचाप बैठी है। प्रधानमंत्री यूनाइटेड स्टेट में है, लेकिन यहाँ मणिपुर हमारा स्टेट बहुत बुरी तरह से जल रहा है और सरकार पूरी तरह से फेल है, इतना मैं कहूँगा।
So, Brijesh, how do you expect all these leaders to come together when the battle lines are drawn so sharply?
Well, I think, they will also try to use this opportunity, the platform of an all-party meet, to stress upon the fact that the government has failed and failed miserably. Because, we also have to understand, as Beena Lakshmi ji has been saying, that they are all political parties. If the BJP would have been in opposition, they would have been saying the very same thing. There's nothing different in what the Congress and the other parties are saying, and I think they will try to use this platform to embarrass the government, but they would also like to be seen as someone who is pushing for a constructive, push for a dialogue, which would ensure that at least initiation of any kind of process begins. And I think they would also like to stress upon the government that next time when any overtures is being made, the overtures should be made and also debunk the double engine claim, which they have been doing it for quite a while now.
Mr. Purkayas, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, we have just heard the BJP leaders comment. See, this kind of divisive narrative is at the root of this problem. He was saying that only the Meiteis are culturally linked to India, and I don't know on what is the basis of his hypothesis. And then he also referred to Rukmini, where this man has even very poor knowledge of Hinduism. And even the narrative their RSS propagate in Northeast. RSS Rukmini is a character from Mahabharata, which RSS linked with the Arunachali communities, not Manipur. In Manipur, they say that Manipur had a history, and Chitrangada was. Yes. They refer to Chitrangada to draw a link between Meitei civilization, old Meitei civilization, and Hindu civilization. So he has totally, jumbled up everything, and then to propagate the very divisive narrative. And this is the problem. And if they go to the all-party meeting with this kind of divisive narrative, there will be hardly any solution. When it's time to talk about reconciliation, the language these leaders are using, and not only after this incident, May 3 incident, we have been seeing the divisive narrative being propagated in Manipur by leaders in the people in the high powers in respectable position. This making off the cuff remarks to create a kind of fear psychosis about one community or the other by shooting off the hip and peddling this narrative of othering. So this is very dangerous trend, and this kind of if they continue to push this kind of narrative, then there will be no solution.
Okay, I think I agree with Mr. Purkayas, because one thing is very sure, Karthike, that when everybody sits to find a solution to what is going on in Manipur, they have to be extremely careful with the language which they use, with the imagery they want to project, because when the situation has come to this level, when you've seen that both sides are unwilling to accept certain situations, then the narrative has to be very, very clear, the language has to be very careful, and the imagery has to also be very, very careful, because you cannot, as a central government or as a national party, nobody can be seen force may bring temporary peace, but it will never bring a lasting peace. And I think that is something which the governments and the political parties have to be very careful. You can play politics all your life, and you can gain or reap rich political dividends where you want, but the situation has come to such a words or any imaginary push to a situation will further exacerbate the situation rather than bringing it to normalcy. You cannot seem to other the cookies, but you also can't seem to be pushing out Maithis just because they are in majority. So I think a very careful, very rather than these loose statements just because you want to get even with Congress or just need to exercise this, because what we are talking about is the lives of people. We are not maximum restraint, because we are not talking about some cattle or something which doesn't affect us. If we are talking about lives of human beings, and they have already seen in the last 50 days perhaps the one of the worst times in the last 1 decade.
Dr. Hawkett, your response before I go to Beena Lakshmi ji?
Yes, to respond to the question of Madam Beena Lakshmi, nation states today are generally termed as surveillance states. They have all the capacity to monitor everyone, everywhere. So the center and the state government are very much aware of the situation prevailing on 3rd May. And even the prolongation of this conflict is also a part of their own agenda, if I could say, because if they wanted to stop, they could have stopped within a few days. And the kind of structural violence that we have been witnessing, the mobile towers not functioning, people could not communicate in the Khamen Log area. Or you can see right now, for the last almost 2 months, even my area, my village has been cut off from electricity. Just imagine, in Churachandpur, there is lack of supply of electricity. People do have 2 hours of electricity, then they charge their mobile phones and others, and they remain dark for many hours. So in many parts, peripheral areas of Imphal, people are out of power, out of electricity for the last almost 2 months. Mobile towers are not functioning, and during such emergency powers, or these mobile towers are jammed, and this kind of structural kind of violence or inequality is happening in Manipur. So this has to be addressed, and this with this kind of inequality, I think the violence will perpetuate, and people will not come out of their the kind of feelings that they have right now, and trust can't be built. So we have to look into all these issues collectively, and how that will come. I think it will come from the top. This kind of change will happen from the top, and which only means that the central government needs to take charge of Manipur for a while, put them under suspended animation, and for 2-3 months, trust has to be built, and we look into the kind of political demands that has been in place for the last many years.
Beena Lakshmi ji?
Yes, absolutely. In the end, as I mentioned, when these conflicts are deliberately engineered, it is affecting lives, not only lives, but there are certain what Michael Foucault would call, the technology of killing. And I've said this is a technology, of how these conflicts are engineered. I think as scholars ourselves, we're acutely watching. I have been conducting research, writing, and analysis since the last 20 years. So we are aware of what's happening. And as panelists has also said, the government and the policymakers do not seem to listen to what we are saying. How many times in India International Center, how many times we have done briefings after briefings to tell that Manipur and the northeast of India, they must remove the martial law, they must ensure proper democracy, they should take out the criminal elements. For the last 15 years, we were really trying to, but no one listens. So that is one of the reasons it's high time that India wakes up. Not just the people of Manipur, but India as a nation must wake up to what is happening in the northeast, number one. Number two, I feel really, what can I say? How can you?
Can I
How
say
can the
something?
political parties, without knowing the proper history of Manipur, of the people of Manipur, go about either taking sides or deciding? It cannot happen. That's for the last, again, decade, we have asked the government of India to include a history of people of Northeast of India in their syllabus. They have not even included a chapter, forget a chapter, not even a couple of paragraphs in the curriculum of this world's largest democracy. As a result, any decision that you take to decide anything, you will not, there's an English saying, a little knowledge is dangerous. This danger is burning Manipur and it'll burn the country.
Okay.
Burn.
Okay. You know,
So this is,
okay.
I think we should go back. We should put all these politicians
I can,
and the
Beena
top
ji, only
leaders.
thing I'll say here is that this country has enough strength to survive all the problems. I have innate strength in the constitutional mechanism of this country and in the wisdom of the people.
Bring them out. This so-called constitutional experts, those people who are, bring them out.
And the wisdom of men and women of this country. I'll show you something. And I'm talking about Dik Khanamam Hangshing, and I'm talking about Iram Chandrabala Devi. I'm talking about these two people. I want them on my screen. They were conferred. They were conferred.
आप समुदाय के प्रति अपनी निस्वार्थ समर्पित और अनुकरणीय सेवाओं के लिए जानी जाती हैं। आपने अपने स्वयं के व्यवसायिक विकास के लिए जिला और राज्य स्तर पर विभिन्न ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम्स में भाग लिया है। श्रीमती दिखानमांग हंगशिंग।
Women are from Manipur. Both these women are from Manipur. Dim Khan Mam Hangshing and Iram Chandrabala Devi. They were conferred National Florence Nightingale Award for Nurses 2022-23 respectively by Indian Nursing Council. These awards were handed over by President Draupadi Murmu. Only thing I want to say is हर रात की नई सुबह होती है, हर रात की नई सुबह होती है और आप देखिए दो मणिपुरी महिलाओं को ये अवार्ड मिला। अगर आप इनको कुकी नागा मैती में तोड़ देंगे, आई थिंक वी विल बी डूइंग द बिगेस्ट इनजस्टिस बिकॉज दीज women belong to Manipur and they have got these awards and they have brought immense pride and pleasure to the people of Manipur.
ANM जिजाब के तहत कुलिया PSC BPO पंगलेन चुराचांदपुर मणिपुर। आप समुदाय के प्रति अपनी निस्वार्थ
panelists
और अनुकरणीय सेवाओं के लिए
to Dr. Hauke, Purkayat ji and Beena Lakshmi ji. The reason why I showed this clip was कि हर रात की एक नई सुबह होती है and it gives me immense pleasure that despite Manipur going so much of problem, you know, we have a part of Manipur that is being celebrated by President Draupadi Murmu for the fantastic service these two women have done for our Indian society. Brijesh, and it is for this reason I put out these visuals कि बहुत चीजें गड़बड़ हो गई हैं, but there is
absolutely
some
there's
hope.
always a ray of hope, and I
There's
think
always a ray of hope.
It brought out smile on our faces as well.
And these two women of Manipur are the ray of hope. If you ask me, women of Manipur are the ray of hope. And on this line, I would end our program, and our commitment to run the coverage on Northeast will continue. There is going to be a special coverage on Northeast on Sunday, especially on the meeting. And we will continue the coverage because we will not cover like others, madam. We will not cover Manipur Northeast the way conflicts are covered by Western journalists in Syria, Rwanda, Congo, episodic, violence-centric, violent event-centric. We will even take up normal issues, civic issues, development issues, and it will be there every day, 1.5 hour news service for Northeast. Thank you, Brijesh. And lastly, before I close, do you have hope?
Well, I think, I mean, you know, not much, but I think it's a positive sign, it's a positive step that, you know, that the opposition, which has also been wanting to meet the Home Minister, you know, because he's at the center of things, or the way things are moving around Manipur, they have got their chance. So I would also hope that they would also rise above politics and would try to bring some constructive approach. I agree that, had BJP been in the other side of the foot, they would have also done the same. So I'm not going into for political bites, political messaging, which all everybody is trying to score for. But I would hope that, that if they are sincere about it, they would not let go of this opportunity as a waste.
Okay. And I think I will only say that tomorrow is a very important meeting. And in that meeting, the basic outlines of what happens in Manipur, how it happens in Manipur will be decided. Now to our special coverage on Modi in America.
Well, hello and a very good morning. Namaste, India, and to everybody that's tuning in, watching this program from the United States of America. It's a big, big day. It's a defining moment in the closer ties, the deepening ties of these two great nations. Prime Minister Modi, Varghese, yesterday was talking about how artificial intelligence is now making new inroads in the technology.